Scientist who was unjustly accused and convicted of a serious crime found himself sentenced to hard time in a prison in the Arizona desert. His cellmate turned out to be another scientist. Determined to escape, the first man began planning carefully and tried to persuade his colleague to join him. The second scientist declined. Eventually, the first man made his break, but the desert was merciless. The heat, lack of water, hunger, and total disorientation nearly drove him crazy. Exhausted and broken, he was forced to return to the prison. When he recounted his ordeal to the other scientists, the man surprised him by saying, "Yes, I know. I tried it too and failed for the same reasons." Angry and confused, the first scientist snapped, "For heaven's sake, when you knew what it was like out there, why didn't you warn me?" The cellmate shrugged and replied, "Who publishes negative results?" That answer exposes something deeply human. We often hide the cost of effort, sacrifice, and perseverance because it's inconvenient. When the price seems too high, many decide it's easier not to try at all. Calling always costs more than convenience, but it gives more in return. Jesus addressed this tension directly in Matthew 26, verse 41. He said, "Watch and pray lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Our spirits long for more truth, more freedom, more purpose, but the flesh prefers convenience. It prefers comfort over calling, ease over endurance. Greetings, Patriots. I'm Perry Greene. Welcome to God in America, where faith and freedom lead us forward, not into comfort, but into the blessings God reserves for those willing to walk with Him. Faith and freedom are rarely convenient. The American War of Independence was not merely a political struggle, it was a spiritual one. That may not be popular to say, but it is historically accurate. Our forefathers and mothers began the quest for liberty with willing spirits. Had their efforts been merely of the flesh, they would have failed because, as Jesus said, the flesh is weak. John Adams explained this clearly when he wrote that the revolution was not the war itself, the war was only the result. The true revolution occurred, he said, in the minds of the people over 15 years before a single shot was fired at Lexington. That generation wrestled with conscience long before they raised their muskets. Before British soldiers fired on the Patriots at Lexington Green, thoughtful Americans had already counted the cost. They made repeated attempts to resolve tensions with the Crown peacefully. They knew they were on thin ice with the King and Parliament, but they also knew they had a higher calling and responsibility to their neighbors. Many colonists preferred not to rock the boat. It was easier to go along to get along. After all, resistance meant risk, economic loss, imprisonment, even death. Yet when the time came, they followed the example set by the signers of the Declaration of Independence, who pledged their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor with a firm reliance on divine providence. That reliance was not theoretical. It was preached from the pulpits by patriot pastors who were influenced by the Great Awakening. They reminded their congregations that freedom without virtue collapses and faith without courage is hollow. We live by the same rules of inertia today. What is at rest prefers to stay at rest. What is moving resists change. Then, as now, many said, it's too much trouble, too much fuss, too much risk, too much inconvenience. Benjamin Franklin captured the moment when he said, "We must all hang together, or assuredly we shall all hang separately." Unity required sacrificial courage. Thomas Paine reminded Americans during one of their lowest moments, "What we obtain too cheaply, we esteem too lightly." God often tests how badly we want something before entrusting it to us. We value what costs us. Parents who wait years to adopt understand this. Believers who endure hardship for the truth understand it. Freedom-loving citizens throughout history have learned it the hard way because calling always costs more than convenience, but it gives more in return. Today, we face different pressures, but the same choice. We want freedom without responsibility, faith without discipline, and truth without consequences. Church attendance declines because it's inconvenient. Biblical conviction is softened because it's uncomfortable. Civic courage disappears because it might cost us reputation, career, or peace. We've been trained to choose convenience over calling. Jesus spoke about the weakness of the flesh in Gethsemane. While he prayed in anguish about the cross, the disciples slept. They had promised loyalty, but when watching and praying became inconvenient, they chose rest. That moment wasn't about exhaustion, it was about readiness. And the question for us is the same. Will we watch and pray or sleep through the moment that demands courage? Calling always costs more than convenience, but it gives more in return. God calls his people to rise above ease, to choose obedience over comfort and conviction over complacency. The spirit is willing, the flesh is weak, but God still honors those who press forward. Well, thanks for listening to God in America today. Until next time, let's keep the light of going beyond convenience burning.